and this is the review of the Minelab EQUINOX 800. So just a brief history of what we've done. I don't like to start a review on any machine of any type until I've got about 40 hours under my belt. As of the day that we're releasing this video, I've got somewhere in the area of 70 to 75 hours on it. That gives me enough time to make my mistakes, figure out what I did wrong, correct it, test it on targets through all the modes and filters that are available on it, do comparisons against other machines for not to see if it's better, but to see how it reacts to targets. If the CTX or the V3i give me a target at 8, 9, 10 inches, I want to see if this hits it. So that's the comparison that we do, not one better than the other. For those of you who are expecting me to trash this machine, you're going to be disappointed. For those of you who expect me to deem this the greatest detector since detecting started, you're going to be disappointed. There are many good points to this machine that I really, truly do like, and there's a lot of shortcomings with this machine as well. That's the goal. Point it out to you. Those of you who are out there among all this hype that are going to or potentially going to spend money on this machine, we're putting out the information so you can make a decision based on what we've learned about the machine, not any preference to the make or anything along those lines. Simply what the machine can do. That's it. So strap in, buckle up. This is Detect America's review of the new Minelab EQUINOX.
Okay, I just left Joe's shop and I'm getting ready to head home with this.
Okay guys, so here's day one with the EQUINOX. Out of the box, I'm not putting any tweaking of this machine at all. No filters or anything. Straight out of the box. The only thing I'm going to do, I went through the different modes. The field 1 mode seems to be the one with the least amount of filters on it. It's going to be the most open screen. At least that's what I can judge so far. So we're going to take it out here in the driveway that leads up to my shop. We're just going to run it. No instructions, no nothing. I want to see how easy it is to use. And I know that with all the trucks and stuff that pull in and out of here, there's always coins and stuff in this driveway. So just a real quick run through and see what it hits. Glad quarter. Okay guys, so day one in the books, and really not a super scientific examination of the machine. Broke it out of the box. I didn't want to use any directions, didn't want to do anything. I wanted to see how easy it was to use for a first time, or somebody just picking it up and going with it. And honestly, not that bad. It's fairly self-explanatory. There's a bit of a learning curve to it, especially if you've been using other detectors for a long time. Again, I wanted to mention there's several modes on this thing, supposedly for different types of soil. I went through the modes, tested them over static targets that I placed there to start with, and found that the field 1 mode seems to be the most open screen mode. More like me running a machine with very little or no discrimination on it. So that's the mode I started off with. It was very easy to use. I will tell you that it hit coin targets big time. Now granted, these were all in the driveway. I did learn one thing. I have way too much clad laying around my driveway. I might have to address that. But it hit these coin targets like a hammer. And there was pretty much no doubt that you were hitting coin targets when you went over this thing. There's a couple of brass targets that were out there. They also hit really high. Got fooled with them, thought they were coins. But nonetheless, hitting brass heavy isn't a bad thing. A lot of brass and copper targets that you want to dig in the field. So I'm not too concerned with that. But let me flip the camera around and show you a few passes up and down my driveway and what I pulled. There you go. Not bad. For hour and a half just playing around the driveway and running through different modes. This is I think it's part of a squeeze box reed that probably fell out of my truck. Another little piece of brass or copper. These all rang very high. Couple of anodized bottle tops rang really high too. Something to be aware of. But there wasn't one of these coins that I didn't expect it to be a coin. It hit it hard. Okay, guys, so the longer that this thing is out in play with everybody starting to have hours behind the coil on the Equinox, one of the questions that keeps popping up is this ghost chatter. Not the chatter you may get going over a field full of trash, a lot of iron, not that chatter. There seems to be a ghost chatter, a chatter that's constantly there. It becomes more prominent sometimes, less prominent other times, and it seems to be the mystery with the Equinox. So we've kind of solved a couple of those issues. One's a little surprising. First and foremost, a lot of you guys like to film when you're out there. You like to videotape it, make your videos. I'm the same way. Your cell phone is the primary culprit of this thing. Your cell phone is constantly receiving and transmitting signal. And if you don't think so, take your cell phone, put it down closer to your coil, and hear what it sounds like. You can correct that by setting your phone to an airplane mode. That will stop the transmission back and forth. That'll quiet it down in your coil. Or leave your cell phone in the car and get yourself a handheld camera. The cell phone is definitely the number one issue. The number two issue that I just recently found out, because shutting the cell phone off, and occasionally I was still getting this interference and I didn't know where it was coming from. In the middle of a dead field with no sources of EMF around, I was still getting this thing. Then it dawned on me. Bluetooth headphones, guys. Now these are for the Minelab Equinox. They pair with even paired with the Equinox. Remember, Bluetooth is a two-way system. It transmits from a source and back to the source. You'll know that because you can put your Bluetooth headphones on and your phone rings and you can talk into your phone. You're talking into a microphone, a condensed mic that's built into the headphones. For that to happen, this has to transmit back to the machine. And that's all fine and good. They're paired, so it's transmitting back to the receiver. In the Equinox, it's made for that, but that transmission's also being picked up by the coil. And some of your headphones are going to be worse than others. They're Bluetooth. You can use almost any Bluetooth headphone on this system. These are actually better than some of the other ones I tested. The ones that I use with my phone when I'm listening to music, they're actually way worse than these. But this is definitely one of the reasons you're getting anything that ghost chatter. Electronic, walkie-talkies you may use, anything that puts out a signal will potentially interfere with the machine. It is extraordinarily sensitive to EMF, extremely sensitive to EMF. High tension, high voltage power lines, well, it'll actually blank out your screen. Your meter will go blank. Your depth indicator won't function anymore. It still works. It's great. It still works hitting coins and everything. That it becomes a tone-only machine. But just be aware that a lot of metal detectors that will get some interference with EMF transmissions, dog fence, invisible fences, that kind of stuff, are going to really hit hard on the Equinox. That was one of the first things I noticed about it. The automatic noise cancel will help in a lot of cases. I haven't been able, some seriously strong chatter, I have not been able to eliminate completely. That's just for your information. There's a lot of machines out there that are susceptible to that kind of stuff, and I just want to make sure you know that the electronic devices you may carry with you are a big-time culprit in causing this ghost chatter in the Equinox 800. That's the first really solid strike I got outside of the two Indians. Let's see what we got. We'll clean it up, see what it is. Alright guys, so she dried up a little bit. It's definitely a large set. That's the first big copper I've pulled with this machine. Hit like a hammer. I gotta tell you what, the few coins that I pulled with this thing, you hem haul around for a couple hours trying to hear the little differences in the tones, but when you hit a coin, it hits like a hammer. There really is no mistake. My only issue so far is I'm still finding targets only in the 6-inch or less range, 5 inches or less. All right, got a good target between 9 and 12 inches deep. So we're going to do a side by side. I don't care. I want to see if the Equinox will pick up a fairly solid coin target deep. 2 minutes ago, in a real trashy area, Equinox popped a silver dime that was pretty much blind to the CTX 3030 because of all the trash. The Equinox loves tiny and loves trash. Wasn't real deep, but it was a real solid kick with the silver dime. So here we got another coin target. It's reading like a copper. Could be a button, but it's reading like a copper. Deep. And give me 2 seconds to set up the Equinox and let's see if it picks it up. I'm getting whiffs of numbers. Everything over to 39, down to 3. But I'm not really getting just a chirp. Definitely not something I would dig. The CTX is calling it a coin. So we're going to pinpoint her out, and we're going to dig it up and see what we got. Alright, so finally pulled it. Show you. We buried the pinpointer. We're at about 11 inches, near as I can figure. Let's see what we got. See if I can keep the camera steady while I pull it out. That would be my cigarette, sorry. There it is, guys. Give me a second. Now, let me brush her off, see what it is. Alright, it's definitely a half cent. I don't know the year. But that's the thing with this machine. There's a lot to like about it. Shallow targets, 6-inch bubble into the ground. This thing is dynamite on coins. And good material artifacts. When you get coins that aren't perfectly on a flat bias to the surface, deep, this sucker is pushing a foot. You may get some scratchy noises. I got numbers that were chirping, that were all over the place on the screen. I was getting really no discernible tone. Nothing that I would dig. Definitely it would be a noise that I would walk over and chalk it up to being surface noise. All right, guys, we'll talk a little bit about depth. It's the absolute, positively #1 question that I have gotten since I've started doing this review and putting the questions out there on the page. This is what I'll say about the depth of the Equinox 800. There is a solid 6-inch bubble around the coil. Anything inside that bubble is going to get picked up. It's got an ultra-fast recycle rate. When I say recycle rate, recovery rate, it puts out a frequency, recovers, goes to the frequency again. It's ultra fast. Super fast frequencies don't necessarily lend themselves to extreme depth. You can slow the recovery rate down. It does clear some of the deeper targets a little bit. Doesn't add an extreme amount of depth to it. However, I don't want anybody to think that the machine is 6 inches and it's just a dead stop. I pulled a couple targets, a silver ring, silver coin that was perfectly flat. I did pull that in the 7 to 8 inch range. If the target is hot, that's going to add to its depth. The machine is super hot to 6 inches. After that, you're kind of relying on the hotness, the heat of your target. The more hot your target, the more it's going to reach out and pick it up. The last video where you saw the half cent was 11.5 inches deep, and it was perfectly on its side. So it's in an iron infested area. So it's that type of situation that's going to inhibit the depth that machine is capable of going. On the beach, in the dry sand, that's the perfect medium. I wouldn't be shocked at all if you pulled a nice chunk of gold ring or a silver ring. I wouldn't be surprised at all if you pulled that deep. But no, if you're going into the woods, you're going into tougher terrain that's mineralized, that may have junk around, that's going to have a tendency on inhibiting how deep that machine can hit. Now, I know guys are going to jump all over me. I've seen the videos. Oh, I pulled a scrap of silver at 12 feet. I haven't seen it. Okay? I'm telling you, from 75 hours of using this machine and trying every target, coin garden targets, natural targets, that it's a great machine in the trash. It's real solid at 6 inches. It's sketchy after 6 inches unless you have a big, hot target. So just keep that in mind. That being said, a lot of guys are going to enjoy this thing because it's going to find you coins. It's going to find you artifacts. Just know that in sketchy terrain, keep in the back of your head that it could be missing stuff that's deep. This is one of the things I want to show you guys. Tremendously trashy area. And we're pulling a target with the CTX that is coming up as a coin target, right around penny. But as you can see, if you're not paying attention, it's a target you could easily miss. And hopefully, I'm going to show you why one of the main reasons I like what's going on with the Equinox. So give me a second, and I'll be back and show you what the Equinox can do in the trash. We started doing the review and filming the footage of the Equinox. One of the top questions that comes out is depth, first of all, and iron bias. We're going to go with iron bias in a little bit more depth later on in this video, but I kind of wanted to show you. Still hitting on some of the heavy trash, but it's much quieter. And this is the main thing that I'm digging about the machine. I don't expect this to be a very deep target, but it separates out coins like champ. It really is a super trash machine. There are some issues with depth and weaker signal targets, but and there's a little bit of an issue of where good targets come in. They have a tendency of running all over the place on the TID. But let me get the shovel. We're going to dig this up and check the depth. And if it's a coin, I suspect it is. Kind of lost it in the hole, guys. So before I dig it out, kind of give you an idea of the depth. We're at probably right around 4, but let me finish getting it out. Okay, so I finally got it out of the hole, and it is a penny of some sort. Thought I saw. Yeah, it's an Indian. And to give you a look at where we found it, we are, sorry about that, we are right at the 4-inch mark, maybe a hair over 4 inches. Alright guys, so we're out Colonial site, and breaking out the Equinox 800. I almost put it back in the truck for the other machine because we have pounded this site and really no shallow targets. Making my loop to come back around. Got one screaming target, and lo and behold, my first Spanish silver with the Equinox. Not deep, maybe 4 inches. I'm not real positive on how this thing is with deep targets, but if it's a coin and it's within 4 or 5 inches, this thing pounds them. All right, guys. Today's digs for the Equinox, and we've got a good 6 hours or better on it today. So here's the junker. I'm logging and keeping every target just to kind of maintain some kind of catalog of where they ring up on the VIDs and depth. So this is the junk targets for today, and it was a piece of horseshoe, and these were the hard hitting targets. And we've got several pieces of shot. We had clad dime, bird band,
two half real coins, and 3 tiny colonial cuff flat buttons.
Okay, guys, so a couple times I put it out on the page. If you had questions, anything about the Equinox that was bothering you, confusing you, ask. And what kept coming up over and over again was this iron bias. And people are panicking over iron bias because they don't know what it does or how to use it. So, not trying to make this a how-to video on the Equinox 800, but I'm going to explain iron bias to you. I'll flip the camera around and show you how to set it on the CTX, on the Equinox. Those of you who've detected for a while, not even that long, and have been into areas where there's a lot of square nails, a lot of bent nails, it drives you crazy because in addition to your iron grunt, you'll get these pops of tones that sound like a beautiful coin. And you've come to learn that bent iron, iron that's jagged, iron that is in close proximity to other targets or to other more powerful iron targets will sometimes give you a false positive. It'll give you a chirp like a coin, and sometimes it's so strong you can actually pinpoint this false tone. What the iron bias does is it masks the falsing to a point. And how it does it is, it's a filter, guys. It's a filter like almost anything else. It's just a kind of a lighter filter, and it will take some of the iron characteristics away, and that kind of stops the falsing. So most of the time, if you're running with a medium set iron bias, it will stop a lot of that chirping and falsing. It'll stop a lot of the current of groaning iron if there's a lot of iron, like bog iron and stuff that we have down here in South Jersey. Here's the problem with iron bias. Again, iron bias is a filter. On the Equinox 800, you have 9 possible settings of iron bias, 10 settings actually, from 0 to 9. The higher you set your iron bias, the more of the iron characteristics you're going to take away. So if you're running through a field of bent nails and you set your iron bias to 9, you're going to eliminate a lot of that grunting and groaning. Here's the problem with that. If you hit a bent nail or cut, broken up, oddball shaped pieces of iron, the grunting of the iron is going to be gone, but the false chirp of a coin that sounds like a coin is still going to be there. The iron bias is simply a generic kind of blanket that settles the falsing of bent iron and massive amounts of iron. It's not a cure-all for iron by any means. If you're going to run it, I would venture to say you're going to want to run this thing about the halfway point, like about 4. That'll still give you enough iron tone to decipher in your ears if it's a true coin target or solid target chirp that you're getting, or if it's a false positive based on oddball shaped pieces of iron. Now give me a second, I'm going to flip the camera around real quick. I'm going to show you how to set up the iron bias on your machine, and then you guys do with it as you please. The other thing I want to tell you, what you want to remember if you're going to use iron bias, if you're on, let's say, field 1, and you set your iron bias to 4, 5, 6, whatever you want to set it, and then you go on and you change your setting to Park 1 or Park 2, your iron bias setting is gone. It's local. So it's only going to be available on where you set it, on the mode that you set it on. So if you set it in Park, it's only going to be available to you in Park. And it's only available when you're operating it in multi-frequency. Okay, real quick, how to set your iron bias. You want to move over to hit your settings button, move over to your recovery speed setting, which is, sorry, my phone is setting this thing off. That's the icon for your recovery speed. Press and hold. Make sure if I get a light. Press and hold the settings button. See the FE? That's the signal for iron. And your plus and minus button will set your iron bias wherever you want. If you're on 9, you're going to get only the false tones that the iron might produce. If you're all the way down here at 0, you're going to get the true iron, which is the grunting, the groaning, and the false signals as well. So putting it up somewhere in the 3 to 4 range is going to give you a pretty middle of the ground good setting for your iron bias. One more thing I want to mention about the iron bias. Remember, it is a filter. Okay, it is a form of discrimination. So if you like the idea of eliminating a lot of the iron grunting, especially if a really infested iron location, and you crank it all the way up to 9, remember this, it is a type of discrimination. So anything, many good targets, guys, can be eroding away, can be next to targets that are throwing off their numbers. So if that target is not producing a true signal, you can have a large set in the ground that's producing a crappy signal. We see it all the time. If that signal is falling below the iron bias level, you're missing that large set. You can miss a lot of good targets by keeping your iron bias or your iron masking or your iron reject by keeping it too high of a level. Okay, guys, so 75 hours roughly with the EQUINOX 800 by Minelab. My final assessment on it. First off, let me just say I apologize for not doing a lot more on the beach. If you look out my window right now, there's 10 inches of snow and it's coming down like crazy, so it wasn't truly a beach season for it. I will supplement this video in the summer on the beach with the EQUINOX. So my assessment is, right off the bat, super light machine, fairly easy to use, super in the trash. Let me just say this. Minelab didn't give me one. I paid full price for it. And generally speaking, once I do a review of a machine, if I like it, I may keep it. Generally, I'll probably sell it. I'm keeping it. And I'll tell you why. In the trash, shallow or not, in the trash, this thing works better than a trash coil, than the hockey puck. I love it for the trash. More separation of coin targets than I've ever seen before. I've got competition machines that don't separate coin targets in the trash better than this machine does. That being said, it is extremely susceptible to EMF. Your cell phone, your headphones, high tension lines, any number of EMF transmitters are going to affect it. The noise cancel works okay. Will not get rid of all of it all the time. Depth. I know you guys are going to beat me up. I've seen the guys doing the videos. It's not a depth machine. It's not a deep seeker. It is solid at 6 inches to let's say 7. After that, deeper than that, if your coin target is not hot or a perfectly flat bias, there's a good potential that you're going to miss it. 6 inches and under, it's not going to miss anything. That being said, TIDs. I know a lot of you guys wanted me to talk about TIDs. I didn't do a segment on the video simply because very difficult. Perfect dirt conditions. Dirt conditions that have no trash. It's absolutely perfect. Your TIDs fall in the perfect line. 20 up is coins. Say 11 to 19 is anything from good solid artifacts to potentially some coppers, bronzy type coins. Below that is trash, except gold comes in there too. When you're in terrain that's a little sketchy, that's a little irony, that's a little EMF-y, it's all over the place. You don't know where aluminum's going to come in. You don't know where your coins are going to come in. They could come in almost anywhere on the screen. Just something to keep an eye on. I broke my TIDs into 2. Upper third, middle third, and lower third. If they fell in those ranges, I knew whether to dig them or whether not to dig them. That's about the assessment of it. So, bottom line. What do I think of the EQUINOX? I've got to give it a thumbs up, guys. I got to say, if you are a newbie coming into the hobby, this machine is going to be a lot of fun for you. You are going to find a lot of stuff. You're going to enjoy it. It's not that difficult to use. If you are a seasoned veteran digger, you're going to use this machine as a tool. I'm keeping it specifically for the trash. How it finds stuff in the trash. Is it going to be my main machine? No. Is it replacing my CTX, my V3i? No. But it is going to help out a lot in trashy areas where big, heavy, multi-frequency machines go a little blind. What do I think about the price at $8.99? Would I like to see it down around $7.99? Yeah. Are you going to get hurt at $8.99? No. Is it replacing the big gun machines that are out there? No, it's not going to replace the big gun machines that are out there. It has its place in that market. That $8.99 is a decent price for a very decent machine. Not the end-all, be-all metal detector. A little less than all the hype, but still, you're not going to get hurt by it. Know that it has some shortcomings, especially when it comes to depth. And if you're going to spend the money on the Minelab EQUINOX 800, you're not going to get hurt. So that's my opinion until I take it to the beach, and we'll do another video on the beach hunts from Detector America.